More fallout from the Hunter Biden pardons. The media and the Democrats are absolutely losing their minds, and it's a glorious thing to watch. We're going to enjoy every bit of it. Scott Jennings leading the way, of course. Also, Chuck Todd tells the truth about Joe Biden. Took him long enough. Maybe he's watching this show. Is Donald Trump going to take over Canada? Not really. Maybe, actually. I'm intrigued. Also, FBI is really unpopular right now and needs reform. Trump said it on the campaign trail. The American people agreed. CNN now shocked to learn that the American people agreed that the FBI needs reform. You can't make this stuff up. And will Bill Maher be quitting his job because Donald Trump is our next president? If so, win-win for everybody involved. That's all coming up right now. We're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Thank you so much for watching the live stream today on Rumble and YouTube and X and on Facebook. Please give us some thumbs up, give us some likes, and get that chat going right now, because the more active you guys are while we're live, the more people will join and watch. And, well, everybody is happy at the end of the day when that happens. So please participate. It's great, and we love it. Hey, if you open an IRA in gold with Birch Gold, you'll get a free silver. Wait, let me rephrase that. You'll get free silver shipped directly to your home. That's right. It's the most wonderful time of the year, right? Silver and gold. And it's the only time of the year that Birch Gold gives away a free 1-ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased. And the best part is you don't actually have to pay a penny out of pocket. Yeah, because you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, and Birch Gold is going to send your free silver coins directly to your home. Now, if you're thinking, I don't need to worry about silver or gold or anything like that, because my God's headed to DC. Things are good. We won the election. No. An administration trying to reverse a $36 trillion national debt in just 4 years is like a field mouse trying to stop a freight train. I love that imagery. We have a huge amount to pay on the interest on the debt alone, let alone the principal. So take action now. Text my name, Larry, Larry, to 989898 before December 18th, and you'll get a free info kit on gold, and you'll claim your eligibility for that free silver on qualifying purchases from Birch Gold. Do this before December 18th, though. Again, text Larry to the number 989898 for peace of mind that lasts longer than just 4 years. All right, let's go right to the panel last night. Again, they're analyzing this Joe Biden pardon of Hunter Biden. There's been reactions all over the map, but those diehard leftists who are just trying to convince everyone that not only was this okay for him to do, not only did he not lie about whether he was going to pardon Hunter Biden, but actually this is a good and virtuous thing to do because Trump, darn it, Trump. Take it away.
NBC News reported that the president and his top aides met this summer and decided two things: that they were going to keep this option open, but they were going to publicly maintain that they would not pardon Hunter Biden through statements from Joe Biden and statements from the White House press secretary. They had a meeting. They coordinated the lie, I guess, for political purposes. And now that he's leaving office, he is going back on what he told the American people. This isn't simply changing your mind. This is just fulfilling what you always intended to do. No Republican is shocked that he is doing this. What I am shocked at is the duplicity of the president of the United States and his top aides to come together and form this lie and stick to it this entire time. We all knew it was ridiculous, and now the American people are seeing what a disgrace he really is.
I think it's incredibly rich to have you say that the people got together and they were duplicitous and they created a lie.
NBC News said it.
I'm saying they created a lie because honestly, what the other side has been saying for years, what you guys ran on for president was multiple lies. I mean, if Eric Holder said it right, I think he said if Hunter's name was Joe Smith, this case would probably have never even gone to trial, right? That it was always a political witch hunt, and it was always.
But wasn't, to Scott's point, I mean, wasn't it a lie? I mean, you can defend it, but wasn't it a lie that he was not going to pardon him?
No, I believe the circumstances have changed. I think that we now have a president coming into office who's talking about firing squads, who's talking about running people around the country and making sure that everyone who's his enemy is going to be punished. And Hunter Biden lied about his drug use on a government form when he was buying a gun. And he failed to file and pay taxes when he was a drug addict. He paid back those taxes with interest. Donald Trump himself was indicted for 17 counts of criminal tax fraud, more than Hunter, and he's going to be the president of the United
11
States.
years.
So
You're missing a few things here. 11 years.
Okay, so first of all,
Hunter's name.
but we got to see this epic eye roll from Scott Jennings again together. Shall we watch it? Also, this woman, Lee McGowan, she's a social media host and content creator for Politics Girl. I kind of consider myself a bit of a content creator, and I suppose I host a show that is put out on social media, right? So if I may be a colleague in the craft and criticize her style, it drives me nuts when people go on these shows and they have to read everything that they say. It drives me insane that they have to look at a sheet of paper. I understand that there are politicians and comms people and party operatives who send you talking points, but don't bring the talking points to the panel discussion and read them off on the sheet of paper in front of you. So pay close attention to those two things. Scott Jennings' epic eye roll, which should go in the Hall of Fame of eye roll television reactions, and Ms. McGowan literally reading the talking points she's been handed.
Was Joe Smith, this case would probably have never even gone to trial, right? That it was always a political witch hunt, and it was always.
But Lee, wasn't to Scott's point? I mean, wasn't it a lie? I mean, you can defend it, but wasn't it a lie that he was not going to pardon him?
No, I believe the circumstances have changed. I think that we now have a president coming into office who's talking about firing squads, who's talking about running people around the country and making sure that everyone who's his enemy is going to be punished. And Hunter Biden lied about his drug use on a government form when he was buying a gun. And he failed to file and pay taxes when he was a drug addict. He paid back those taxes with interest. Donald Trump himself was indicted for 17 counts of criminal tax fraud, more than Hunter, and he's going to be the president of the United States.
All right, so a great eye roll. Great job reading your talking points from the sheet of paper you brought in front of you, ma'am. Good job. Glad you made it to the CNN panel. Don't know if you're going to be invited back. Talking about firing squads. Donald Trump won the election, and he's talking about firing squads, everybody. Get ready for the firing squads. You're all going to get lined up against a wall, and you're all going to be murdered by Donald Trump, apparently. That's the best that she can do, and the best that CNN can do, by the way. And I love that all we got was an eye roll from Scott Jennings. No one else on the panel actually reacted to the firing squads and said, all right, that's taking things a little too far, right? I mean, can we just stop with the firing squads thing? No. That's normative political discourse over there on CNN. Also, as we're trying to equivocate and say, well, Donald Trump committed all these felonies and now he's going to be president. So, of course, it's okay for Joe Biden to go back on his word and pardon his son going all the way back to 2014 for the last 11 years. Boy, what a randomly specific number Joe Biden just picked. 2014. I wonder if Joe Biden has a very good working knowledge about exactly what his son did and was involved in starting in 2014. When he took that job with the Ukrainian oil and gas company, the same Ukrainian oil and gas company that Donald Trump asked to be investigated during that led to the impeachment of Donald Trump. Yeah, it's all really coincidental how all of that works out. Let's pick a date, 2014. Also, if I can just reiterate, if you missed yesterday's program, this is not the same thing. Okay, in terms of comparing whatever Donald Trump has been accused of or even convicted of and what Hunter Biden just pled guilty to. All right, just pled guilty to. First of all, Donald Trump's convictions are being appealed, and many of them will be overturned. They're already at the appeals court because they were just brought on politically, number one. Number two, they literally had to invent a crime in Manhattan to convict Donald Trump. That's how vociferously they were frothing at the mouth to try to throw him in jail because they hate him so much. It proves actually that the Justice Department and various district attorneys' offices and judicial, what's the best word for it? Legal systems at the lower level, not just at the federal level, can be used for political purposes. Donald Trump is living proof of that. And thank you, Joe Biden, for saying exactly that in your pardon of Hunter Biden. Thank this woman, actually, for proving the point, because in making her case as to why this pardon should be okay and is absolutely wonderful, she even said the only reason he was convicted is because his last name was Biden and not Smith. Okay, that proves that the Justice Department is politicized. It's so funny that Democrats are finally okay with admitting that the Justice Department and the law can be used as a political weapon. The problem is the one example that they're pointing to is actually a case of actual law breaking on behalf of the son of the president of the United States. I mean, you're right that the Justice Department and the law can be politicized and used for political purposes. You've just picked the wrong example. Hunter Biden ain't it. But go ahead and die on that hill, guys. Die away. More of Scott Jennings here. I'm going to let this play for a while. Scott Jennings at his very finest.
ABC News reported that the president and his top aide.
Okay, now this starts right at the very beginning. Same spot, doesn't it, Kevin? I think I might want to skip ahead on this one, right? Oh, no. I'm sorry. Pardon me. This is Scott Jennings using that same point again. I apologize. Let's just pretend I never did that.
NBC News reported that the president and his top aides met this summer and decided two things: that they were going to keep this option open, but they were going to publicly maintain that they would not pardon Hunter Biden through statements from Joe Biden and statements from the White House press secretary. They had a meeting. They coordinated the lie, I guess, for political purposes. And now that he's leaving office, he is going back on what he told the American people. This isn't simply changing your mind. This is just fulfilling what you always intended to do. No Republican is shocked that he is doing this. What I am shocked at is the duplicity of the president of the United States and his top aides to come together and form this lie and stick to it this entire time. We all knew it was ridiculous, and now the American people are seeing what a disgrace he really is.
I think it's incredibly rich to have you say that the people got together and they were duplicitous and they created a lie.
NBC News said it.
I'm saying they created a lie because
NBC News said it.
Honestly, what the other side has been saying
simply by saying, well, I'm just out looking out for the American
people. But why
people.
would he have answered?
What do you mean?
Why would he have given such an oddly specific denial numerous times? What could it have possibly been?
Scott, I have no idea. All
politics, corruption, partisanship, grifting. That's the answer.
Would it have been, the Trump administration had an opportunity to investigate it? They could not verify the things that you're alluding to.
They tried to, and he got impeached over it. They impeached Donald Trump over the investigation that Hunter Biden has now gotten a pardon for.
You don't think?
Just a quick point of fact.
2 points.
The Department of Justice investigations, indictments into Hunter Biden. This has nothing to do with the Republican Party. They don't run the Justice Department. The Justice Department, as you might know, since you had been in the government at one time before you lost your race this year, is an agency of the executive branch. The Attorney General is appointed by the president. This is the Biden administration investigating, charging, and ultimately finding conviction of Hunter Biden. The Republican Party runs no investigation. This is an official DOJ action, is it not?
Real fast, I just need to jump in here. We'll let this finish in a minute. It's a montage of Scott Jennings' greatest hits last night. That guy sitting next to him, if you don't recognize him, his name is Jamal Bowman. He was a Democratic congressman. I guess he is for 4 more weeks. In this session of Congress, he lost his primary because he likes Hamas terrorists way too much. He represents a district in Brooklyn, and believe it or not, people in New York actually not so fond of the idea of their congressman supporting terrorists. He's also the guy who pulled the fire alarm during the debate and leading up to the vote in the House of Representatives over the budget. Yeah, that guy. He's a congressman. So Scott Jennings just pointed that out, sort of tweaked him a little bit about the fact that he lost his race, his primary against another Democrat. He'll come back, but I just wanted to lay out exactly who he is when he starts to chime in again.
Well,
just say yes.
No.
So are we saying we have a problem with all of those things?
How many of the Trump children that we were told are corrupt needed pardons? 0.
Scott,
no one looked into them.
It's
Scott,
to your point,
getting
Scott,
$2 billion from the Saudis.
The Trump children did not face federal charges. To your point, I'm going to give you that. But the person on here, Charles Kushner, who was convicted for a crime.
Did he go to jail?
Yes, he was living in Alabama prison.
He served time?
But he was in prison. They completely different crimes.
It strikes me that one of the arguments against
you didn't answer the question.
He's literally moved from a jail cell in Alabama to a.
They're not equivalent. They're not equivalent in any way, shape, or form.
Please.
But it's you're bringing up an issue, and you brought it up, so I want to address it. This idea that Hunter Biden is being selectively prosecuted. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the core criticisms of the Republicans, and Trump specifically, during the Biden years, is that the Department of Justice is engaging in selective prosecution and investigations of Republicans. And today, what I hear Democrats saying is, you know what, you're right. Joe Biden's DOJ does engage in selective prosecutions, which is exactly why we need people to come in and clean it out now. There seems to be bipartisan consensus.
But
Selective
does it-
prosecutions.
Does it open that door, Congressman?
What door? I'm sorry.
The door
Can I
to
ask a question? Do you all think that Merrick Garland should be fired because of this corruption at the DOJ? You think there's corruption there? You think this was a politicized witch hunt? But the
No.
Attorney General should be held accountable, no?
These charges were trumped up because his name is Hunter Biden.
But wouldn't
Period.
wouldn't you, if you were
We
the
had
president, wouldn't
congressional-
you believe the Attorney
There
General?
were-
Let's
Hold on,
consult.
let me
Let's
let him
consult
finish.
our legal
No, I just-
expert.
That's my favorite part. It's the one question that every Democrat, and of course by extension every member of the media who's paid to read a teleprompter like Abby Phillips there, must confront. If you agree that Hunter Biden was being prosecuted, investigated, and pursued solely because he's Joe Biden's son, then that means you concede there is corruption at the Justice Department, and shouldn't Attorney General Merrick Garland step down in shame? In fact, aren't you sitting Congressman Joe Obama, shouldn't you be calling for an investigation into Merrick Garland and the Justice Department writ large into the obvious politicization and corruption in that organization? And what was Jamal Bowman's response? Why don't you ask this guy over here? He literally just said, don't ask me. I'm only a congressman sitting here, and I'm only here to answer questions, but not yours, Scott Jennings. I mean, look at his answer.
No?
These charges were trumped up because his name is Hunter Biden.
But wouldn't
Period.
wouldn't you, if you were the
We had
president, wouldn't you
congressional-
believe the Attorney
There
General?
were-
Let's
Hold on,
consult.
let me
Let's
let him
consult
finish.
our legal
No, I
expert.
just-
NBC News.
Consult the legal expert. That's Jamal Bowman, who I think was asleep at one point during that panel discussion, too. That was just a highlight reel of Scott Jennings' best stuff. When Donald Trump comes into office and he has a new attorney general, a new FBI director, obviously they're going to investigate a lot of this corruption, a lot of these crimes that have gone uninvestigated. Could I suggest one more crime that Donald Trump might want to investigate? Because there's a crime happening right before our very eyes. In fact, we're witnessing it. It is a crime that CNN has not yet announced Scott Jennings' primetime show. There's an absolute crime against all of television, against entertainment, against information, against anyone who would like to have their opinion expressed articulately and properly and vociferously in primetime on CNN. If you'd like to tune into CNN in primetime and see one person, just one person, host a show on their entire lineup that actually speaks for you and in an intelligent and articulate way is capable of communicating your positions and your politics, I know it sounds crazy that you don't have one show that does that. Scott Jennings could do that. They've got him under contract right now. It is a crime, absolute crime. My only guess is that they've offered him the job and Jennings is under contract and he says, yeah, you know what? I'll just wait for my deal to expire here. And then maybe I'll get greener pastures at a network that people actually watch. That said, the delightful opportunity that we all have to watch Democrats and media members disintegrate and reach this cognitive dissonance in their brain. You can see two worlds colliding all at the same time. Has been delicious. And the Schadenfreude, well, there's enough to go around. By the way, if you like Schadenfreude like I do, you probably want some cold beer with it too. There's something about the German aspect of it. It just helps wash it down better. Dan Goldman, one of the stupidest people in Congress, but you got to hand it to him. He's in a safe district. And so he is willing to make any case, any argument, take any stupid left-wing position going after Donald Trump and defending Biden and his corruption. He's been able to do that without ever worrying about losing his seat in Congress. So God bless Dan Goldman. And something remarkable happened yesterday with Casey Hunt on their program at noon. In the afternoon, 3 p.m. Dan Goldman was confronted with what Dan Goldman said about Joe Biden and a pardon many, many months ago. And this is great. Pay close attention to the look on Dan Goldman today's face when he has to see what Dan Goldman earlier this year said.
In July of 2023, just after that plea deal fell through, this is what you said. I want to watch.
Do you think a pardon for his son would be a mistake? Yes, and I don't think there's any chance that President Biden is going to do that, unlike his predecessor, who pardoned all of his friends and anyone who had any access to him. And I think you see that in this case, where he kept on, and Merrick Garland kept on, a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney to investigate the president's son. If there is not an indication of the independence of the Department of Justice beyond that, I don't know what we could look for.
What does that feel like, watching yourself back then, reassuring people that Biden was not going to issue a pardon for his son?
Yeah, and I think that if that plea agreement and that plea deal had gone through, there would be no pardon. That was a satisfactory outcome.
It had already fallen
that
through.
Only was. Sorry?
When you reacted, this was when the deal had fallen through. And I hear what you're saying.
That was just, hang that in the Louvre, could we? Yeah, well, you know, if that plea deal that they originally worked up had gone through, then there would have been a deed for a pardon. So I was right. Sir, you made that comment after the plea deal had already collapsed. You had suggested that there should be no pardon after the plea deal had collapsed. Sorry to break it to you, sir. Also, I mean, not to be petty or anything, but this is Dan Goldman today. That's Dan Goldman 4 months ago. 4 months ago. Dan Goldman, 4 months ago. Dan Goldman today. What the hell's going on there? That's a radical change in appearance in just 4 months, isn't it? Is there a Caitlyn Jenner situation going on here or something? I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that or something, I guess. That's creepy. Also, one other thing, not for nothing. That's Dan Goldman's office, I'm told, where he's Skyping in from. Look at the bookshelf behind him. One book. One book. And it's titled Manhattan, which presumably is the place where he's actually sitting at that very moment. So he's got a book about the place that he's sitting in. I guess because at various times when he's in his office, he's like, you know what? I'd like to read up a little bit about the city that I live in. I'm going to pull my one book off the shelf right behind me here. All right. We go from that weird dude and his bizarre political takes to this weird dude and his, frankly, dangerous, un-American political takes. He's Jamie Raskin. He represents a congressional district in Maryland that literally is right on the border of Washington, D.C. You can't get swampier than Jamie Raskin. Jamie Raskin basically represents D.C. in the House of Representatives. He led the charge in the Trump impeachment. He's been one of the fiercest defenders of Joe Biden in the Judiciary Committee. Now, this clip is super, super interesting because this is from Sunday at noon on State of the Union. This was about 6 hours before the announcement of Joe Biden's pardon. Okay? Now, bear that in mind. And we're told by Karine Jean-Pierre that Joe Biden made his final decision about this pardon over the weekend. So as you watch this segment play out with Jamie Raskin, knowing that 6 hours later, the announcement of the pardon came through, I want you to imagine Joe Biden sitting there with his oatmeal in his jammies, watching the television, sound way up so he can hear it, right? I'm guessing that he was looking for his Bugs Bunny cartoons, maybe Powerpuff Girls, and accidentally stumbled upon a news show. And he said, that guy, I know that guy. And he started watching. And now understand, up until this moment in the program, Jamie Raskin's been spending a ton of time talking about the integrity of the Justice Department and how he's very concerned about the Trump administration coming in and using the Justice Department as a political weapon and issuing pardons for people who were involved in January 6th. He's very worried about pardons being issued for January 6ers because, well, Trump is falsely accusing the Justice Department of playing politics. All right. Now you've got all the backstory. Watch this fascinating segment.
We've been talking about the politicization or lack thereof inside the Department of Justice, and Hunter Biden, who is now facing sentencing in a tax case and a gun case, his lawyers are arguing that part of why he's facing this is because these charges wouldn't have been pursued against someone who wasn't the president's son. Do you think President Biden should pardon Hunter Biden?
So let's go back to first the selective prosecution point. And there is a defense called selective prosecution. If you can show that the government has a set of cases that all look alike, but they pick one person out to prosecute based on the claim that Donald Trump has been making about why he was targeted. And so there are lots of claims of political prosecution and political.
And was Hunter politically?
Well, I mean, obviously that's a judicial point, and you've got to look at what the evidence is. And I don't know enough.
So should the president pardon him?
I mean, again, that is a unilateral executive power, power that.
And should he use it?
Well, the power exists for the president to show mercy for people who have committed crimes and either suffered some kind of injustice in the process or
Do you think Hunter has?
The
should the president
is disproportionate. I mean, I haven't even remotely looked at it. I mean, I know basically what the alleged crimes were. One was when he was filling out a form about whether he was.
I get the sense you're not going to answer my question.
Yeah, I don't know the answer now. I'm not in the pardon office, but it does give me the opportunity to say there's a process for doing this with a pardon attorney. And they shouldn't be passed out like Oreo cookies.
Like Oreo cookies. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so pardon shouldn't be passed out like Oreo cookies. You should go through the process, use the pardon office. Joe Biden did not use the pardon office. He did not go through the regular process. And one could argue that this pardon was passed out like Oreo cookies, or perhaps you could also say it was passed around like a crack pipe. I don't know why I came up with that analogy. It just came off the top of my head. Jamie Raskin refusing to say one way or the other whether Joe Biden should use the pardon power of the presidency or not. He was given multiple opportunities to say so. The fact that he wouldn't say so obviously means that Jamie Raskin thinks that he should not use the pardon power for his son, but he didn't want to commit to that because, well, he's too good of a weaselly politician to get himself trapped into that corner. But you can see the corner that he is, in fact, in. Either the Justice Department is used for political purposes or it isn't. When Trump says that it is, Trump is a threat to democracy. When Biden says that it is, he's a loving father. And it's obvious on the face of it that Hunter Biden is being persecuted by the Justice Department. Either it's right to pardon Hunter Biden or it isn't. Well, we'll wait to see. As far as I'm concerned, as of now, Joe Biden is on the record saying that he will not pardon his son, and that's because Joe Biden is a champion of the rule of law, and no one is above the law. But as soon as Joe Biden does, in fact, issue that pardon for Hunter Biden, well, let's go back to step one, which is he's a loving father, and he just did this because Trump. This is where they are right now. And there's a lot of navel gazing and a lot of questions about why the Democrats didn't do well in this election, why they got demolished, why they threw everything they had at Donald Trump, and the American people said, yeah, screw you. This is the guy we want. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I'll maintain that one of the major reasons is what you're seeing play out right here, either from Jamie Raskin or the people sitting at that panel with Jamal Bowman or from Joe Biden and his actions here. Kamala Harris, and on down the line. They say one thing, they maintain one message, they maintain one through line in their political attacks on Donald Trump. And then the second they have the opportunity, they actually do exactly what they accuse Donald Trump of. They do exactly what they accuse conservatives of and Republicans of. And then they pretend like you're supposed to not believe your very eyes. They pretend like, oh, no, I know it looks that way, but you're completely wrong. You're stupid. You're a moron. You're a partisan MAGA hack. You don't see what's really going on here. The truth is we're being consistent, pristine, and virtuous the entire time. And they're not. They're not. They're hypocritical political hacks. And say what you will about Donald Trump. He doesn't play that game. He doesn't pretend to be one thing and then end up doing something else and then gaslight you into thinking that you're the nut, you're the maniac. No. Like him or not, agree with him or not, vote for him or not, Donald Trump is exactly who he says he is. He does exactly what he says he's going to do. You may not like it, and he's fine if you don't like it. Just stay out of his way because he's got work to do. And I think ultimately the American people, they would rather have somebody that they might not even like that much, but at least he's genuine and he's going to do what he says he's going to do versus this pack of lying, scheming, duplicitous hacks.
Can we roll through some super chats?
Oh, sure, Kevin. Hey, Kevin's here, everybody. Did you hear Kevin? Thanks for saying hi, Kevin. You were oddly silent yesterday, and people were concerned I was getting direct messages and text messages. Are you okay, Kevin?
I am doing great.
You're not mad at me? We don't have a rift or anything? There's not some Cold War that I need to know about? Now's the time to open it up live on the stream.
I'm always a little mad at you, but never too much.
It's true. The underlying simmering hostility from Kevin is really what makes this show thrive. It gives us our spark. All right. A PMN with $10. Oh, thanks for the sawbuck. Do people still say sawbuck? Actually, a sawbuck is $20, isn't it? What is $10? It's a tenner I wouldn't give you 2 5s for. A PMN, thank you very much. Watching from Apia in Samoa. We love your program over here, Larry. Keep it up. Dude, that is so cool. I was wondering what Apia Man stood for. So that's in Samoa. Wait, Kevin, can we do the show live from Samoa one day?
No.
Sorry, dude. I tried. Thanks for the $10, though. All right. Angela, New York City corrupt lawfare would not have happened if the name was not Donald Trump. Thank you. Everyone's saying, oh, no one would have brought these charges if his name were Hunter Smith, which is a terrible name, by the way. But of course, the only charges that were brought to Donald Trump was because he was Donald Trump. Unlike the white powder crook, President Trump was only guilty of love for America. Thanks, Angela. Bless you, babe. Appreciate that. Francie Hartzog with the dog we love. Wow, what a huge super chat. Thank you so much for the $19.99. Changing the subject. By the way, you know, we don't ask for these super chats, but whenever you do give us super chats, we highlight it, and if you want your comment read, it's going to be read if you give us a super chat. I beg everyone to spread the truth, trying to get the word to Trump. Women and children freezing in tents. I beg for help. Well, we've been talking about it. I mean, we haven't done a full segment on it or anything, Francie. Sorry, Western North Carolina near Asheville. No, we know. Hurricane Helene has wiped out Western North Carolina. SOS. Listen, we've been talking about the fact that people are still in tents there. In fact, we made a big deal out of the whole Jill Biden accepting the Christmas tree from that area, right? And she tried to say, oh, and people have been suffering there, but she never mentioned the fact that people are literally living in tents. FEMA has denied these claims, and I know that there's been some local reporters who have actually gone down there and interviewed these people who are living in tents. It's an absolute outrage, and the crime against humanity continues here with these poor people. So, Francie, thank you for giving us the opportunity, and we'll try to shed more light on it as well. Thank you so much for the super chats. Alberto Gorin. I always think that says groin. I don't know why. €11. Now, do you have to give us 11 because that's like on the exchange rate? It turns out to $10. Either way, thank you, Alberto. I'm not sure how the exchange rate works, if it goes that way or not. But we're going to use those euro to buy some like Belgian chocolate or something cool like that. Thank you so much. That was awesome. You remember Donald Trump put out a message on Truth Social warning the countries of Mexico and Canada that on day one he was going to institute a 25% tariff on those nations if they didn't secure the border, stop the migrant crisis, and get a hold of the fentanyl that keeps pouring across both of those borders. Now, you remember the heads started exploding. Oh, that's going to cause inflation, which, by the way, tariffs don't cause inflation. And taxes don't cause inflation either. See, inflation happens when you weaken the value of the dollar by printing more money from the federal government to pay for things that, well, we don't have money to pay for. That causes inflation. I just wanted to clear that up. If people always say that, they're wrong. If tariffs may increase the cost of goods and services, that's true, but it's not inflation. It's very tangible what caused the increase in those goods and services. And as soon as you remove the tariffs, the costs go back down. That's not inflation. All right, glad we cleared that up. But everyone was screaming, oh, it's crazy, it's crazy, it's crazy, he's doing that. But then what happened? Within days, Donald Trump had a phone call with the president of Mexico, and she said, yeah, listen, we're going to stop the migrant crisis. We're going to stop this caravan in its tracks. And I'd love to work with you on fentanyl. It's a complicated issue, but we're going to get to it. But he got results immediately. And then our neighbors to the north, well, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, actually made a pilgrimage to Mar-a-Lago to kiss Trump's ring. let's say. There was an amazing picture of him sitting at the table there over the Thanksgiving weekend in Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump. Love to hear what that conversation was like, right? Well, thanks to Peter Doocy and some of his sources at Mar-a-Lago, we have a smidgen of an idea, at least how a portion of that conversation went. Take a listen.
And tonight we're getting some new details about that Trump-Trudeau dinner from two people who were at the table. We are told that when Trudeau told President-elect Trump that new tariffs would kill the Canadian economy, Trump joked to him that if Canada can't survive without ripping off the U.S. to the tune of $100 billion a year, then maybe Canada should become the 51st state and Trudeau could become its governor. Right.
But more on that detail with the panel. Peter, thank you.
Hold on. Now, this is great. I love this. And I love Peter Doocy. I stand behind no man in my brotherly, affectionate, non-romantic love for Peter Doocy. And he's usually got great sources and great reporting. But I got to take issue with portion of this. Let's watch it together, shall we?
Trudeau told President-elect Trump that new tariffs would kill the Canadian economy. Trump joked to him that if Canada can't survive without ripping off the U.S. to the tune of $100 billion a year, then maybe Canada should become the 51st state.
Okay, did you catch it there? And again, I hate doing this because I don't know Peter Doocy's sources here, but there's a misreporting in here, I think. Here it is again, real fast.
That new tariffs would kill the Canadian economy. Trump joked to him.
There it is right there. How do you know it's a joke? What do you mean joked? I would like to think that Donald Trump was dead serious when he threatened Trudeau and said, well, you know, if you can't make it without ripping us off for all this money, maybe you don't have any business being a country of your own. Maybe it's time to finally pursue America's manifest destiny and expand. Now, I take issue with the idea of Canada being the 51st state because that's a very big territory with a lot of people, kind of hard to manage. Maybe we should respect the provincial boundaries and break it into, 7, 8 states. I don't know. Yukon could be wrapped into Alaska. Either way, why do we think this was a joke? Just hear me out for a minute. Isn't it weird, if you think about it, that we expanded our nation and incorporated territories and got new states, including Alaska, not even part of the contiguous 48, and Hawaii, all the way out there in the middle of the South Pacific. And then in 1959, we just stopped. Almost 70 years ago, we just stopped. We just said, okay, we're done. We've had enough. No more states. Why? It doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, either we have manifest destiny or we don't have manifest destiny. Now, I always thought that we would start with Baja California and stretch down from Ensenada all the way down to Cabo San Lucas. I mean, have you ever been to Cabo San Lucas? It's mostly Los Angeles anyway. That's where most of the people are there from Southern California. I mean, it just makes sense to extend California down into Baja. That would solve the border crisis there, by the way, in San Diego too, because, great way to solve the border crisis, just, no more border, incorporate all the land and make it part of America. That makes sense. I mean, eventually Canada and Mexico should realistically become our country. And if they can't maintain their own budget and their own sovereignty without our help, then hell yeah, let's bring them on. And it's win-win for Canadians because finally they'll be able to say they live in a country that won a Stanley Cup. Think about it. Las Vegas, a city in the middle of the desert, has won more Stanley Cups in the last 30 years than any city in Canada. It's pretty pathetic to be a Canadian right now. And you know what? The most pathetic thing about being a Canadian, honestly, think about this. You're Pierre Trudeau. You're the prime minister of this country. I guess you're respected in some corners of the planet. People like this guy. Lefty, socialist, Marxist places in Western Europe and other areas of the country, they think Justin Trudeau's great. There's lefties here in America who think he's just a dreamboat. And boy, it'd be great if he were our president. Why can't we have a president like Justin Trudeau? I hear from liberals all the time. So you're Justin Trudeau. You're at the pinnacle of politics in your country of Canada. And you have to go down hat in hand to make the case against your southern neighbor, the United States of America, and the incoming president, Donald Trump, somebody who you have openly criticized and chastised and mocked and ridiculed and created a huge rift with over the course of the last 8 years. Now you're humbled. Now you have to go down there with all this humility and try to make nice and say, oh, please don't inflict these tariffs on us. And your entire argument, the entire basis of your argument was what now?
Two people who were at the table. We are told that when Trudeau told President-elect Trump that new tariffs would kill the Canadian economy, Trump...
That's your argument. That's your entire argument that you've got for Donald Trump. Please, Mr. Trump, you can't raise these tariffs. You'll kill our economy. You have to concede that. How pathetic is this? How weak is this? That you have to concede that you are so dependent on the United States of America. And by the way, if you've read The Art of the Deal, and I do suggest you read The Art of the Deal, Justin Trudeau has just completely lost. He's lost. He had whatever position he thought he had with Donald Trump to try to negotiate something, he has just weakened himself, if that is in fact the argument that he made. You can't do that. You'll kill us. Oh, really? Okay, then. Let's have a real conversation. If that's the position I'm in right now, that if I made this decision that I'd kill you like that, I think that you've just conceded that I'm in the power position. Unless Donald Trump didn't already know that. It's now being confirmed. Amazing. What an amazing turn of events. Are you tired of the winning yet? Something tells me that things are going to be resolved with Canada. Something tells me that Prime Minister Trudeau is going to find some sort of détente and peace with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's going to get what he wants from Justin Trudeau. You'll remember when Donald Trump was last president, and he promised that he would take away NAFTA and negotiate a new trade deal with Mexico and Canada. They did end up doing that. It's called the USMCA, which I know sounds like the Marine Corps, but it's the United States Mexico-Canada agreement, which I think is kind of funny. You know, it used to be called NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, and it wasn't really free trade. But this one, they reoriented and made sure that the United States was named first, USMCA. That's subtle and done for a reason. But when Donald Trump blew away NAFTA and said this is no longer workable, we're going to get a new agreement, and Mexico said, okay, when do you want to talk? Canada, Justin Trudeau, that same guy, said, hell no, I'm not going to negotiate with you. I'm not going to sit at the table. We're fine with NAFTA. Let's keep things the way they are. And Trump said, okay, well, listen, you don't have to be a part of this deal, Justin. And so he went and had his first meeting with President Obrador of Mexico, and the next thing you know, Justin's like knocking on the door saying, oh, please let me in. And Trump's like, no, we don't need to include Canada. U.S. and Mexico can have our agreement, and then you'll just work things out on your own. But we'll be fine. U.S. and Mexico. And Canada's like, please let us in. And finally, he did let them in. We're seeing it happen all over again. They're like hamsters on one of those wheels. They can't get enough. It's fantastic. I love being on the winning side of this. I'm still on board with the idea of annexing Canada. Trust me, it won't be violent. Most Canadians will come willingly. I mean, they talk like us already for the most part. We'll fix that whole Aboot thing or Surrey thing. We'll fix that. Trust me, you'll assimilate. You'll be one of us. But Donald Trump promises that he won't let this happen in Mexico. Remember when he suggested that maybe Greenland would be a good idea? Maybe it'd be time to annex Greenland, and everyone lost their minds. He just had, this is a real tweet, by the way. He literally did this. That's dated August of 2019. And he promised not to build a Trump Tower in Greenland. But I'll be honest with you. I mean, I think it's kind of an improvement. I would love to go to Greenland, and I would love to not have to deal with the exchange rate. What is the currency Greenland uses, by the way? Good stuff. I don't know if you've seen this guy. His name is Sean Farash. He's a social media comedian, and he does an incredible Trump impersonation. And, well, he did his own summary of the meeting between Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump. Enjoy.
Well, I just got done with a beautiful meeting with the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. He sits when he pees. He doesn't want you to know that, but he does it. Everybody knows it. But you look at it, I said, Justin, we're going to slap you so hard with tariffs. He said, sir, please don't talk dirty to me. You know I love being slapped. I said, not like that, Justin. We're going to hit you so hard with tariffs, and you're not going to know what hit you. You have to close your border. You have to help us with our border. He said, we're not going to do it I said, okay, we're going to cut off your supply of soy. He said, sir, please don't do that. I need my soy. Justin Trudeau is the #1 consumer of soy in the entire world. He consumes more soy than any nation or any man, anybody ever thought possible. He consumes so much soy. I said, Justin, you must take after your mother because Fidel Castro was definitely not a soy boy. He said, sir, please don't cut off my soy. Please don't hit us with tariffs. It's going to hurt our economy. I said, if that's the case, you could become our 51st state. He said, but sir, what are you going to do with all the moose? I said, I've been handling moose for a very long time, and we're going to change the plural of moose to mooses, by the way. I've been handling mooses for a very long time. Chris Christie, you may have heard of him. Stacey Abrams, Rosie O'Donnell, these are some of the biggest mooses the world has ever seen, and we handled them like nothing. I said, Justin, do we have a deal? No tariffs, no soy if you don't close the border. He said, sir, you've got yourself a deal. And we may very well add Canada, too, at the end of the day. They may become our 51st state if they don't play ball. But for now, we have a deal. And Justin Trudeau returned back to Canada, sat down, took a nice leak, and went to bed. It's the art of the deal at work. We are making America great again, believe me.
I love it. I mean, that's great. It's not only is it great, but it's very funny. And it proves that our late night comedians and Saturday Night Live and all the other people who are in the business of being funny still don't quite get Trump. And more importantly, they don't get their audience. See, you can have fun with Trump. Trump is an incredibly funny and entertaining guy, but you don't always have to be mean-spirited and evil and insulting, not just to Trump, but to us, those who don't hate Trump as much as Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert and the whole crew over at Saturday Night Live. You can actually be funny and actually sort of celebrate who Trump is. That Sean Farash guy is very funny. Not only is the impersonation good, but the material is good. A lot of times you get people who do a good impersonation, but their material kind of sucks. But that's great. And honestly, he's got the sir thing down. I got to say, as this transition continues to roll out, and this latest episode with Justin Trudeau and Trump saying, well, maybe you should be our 51st state, which is the greatest troll I've ever heard from a world leader. Can you imagine? I just keep thinking to myself, when we get to January 20th, the next 4 years are going to be amazing. And I'm so glad we're here together to watch it. One of the big issues that Donald Trump took to Election Day to the American people was corruption in our federal government, and most specifically in the Justice Department and the FBI. He was living proof of that. Friends of his were living proof of that. The people who got caught up in the January 6th investigation and prosecutions were all living proof of that. The American people need to know that their Justice Department can operate free and unfettered from politics. And we've already pointed out that, ironically, the rationale Joe Biden used to pardon his son, Hunter, actually reinforces this notion that the Justice Department can be used arbitrarily and politically, and that's corruption, and it's dangerous, and it's wrong. You know, you often hear this joke in Washington, D.C., where people say, you know, a U.S. attorney can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. I try that again. You often hear this joke in Washington, D.C. People say it all the time, that a U.S. attorney can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich if they wanted to. And everyone laughs. Yeah, that's right. That's the way it is. And nowhere does anyone say, wait a second, that's awful. That's evil. That's abuse of power. That's corrupt. The ham sandwich is innocent. I don't care if you got the ham sandwich indicted. I guarantee you that that ham sandwich did not break the law. But everybody says it like this is just sort of one of those truths that we all should live with. And the fact that a U.S. attorney and the Justice Department is that powerful that they could, in fact, get an indictment against a ham sandwich tells you that things need to be fixed at the Justice Department. So Donald Trump made that case to the American people. And the American people, as we know, overwhelmingly affirmed Donald Trump as the man to come into Washington and do the things he said he would do, including reforming the Justice Department and the FBI. Now, let's skip to CNN yesterday as they took up the issue of the American people's opinion on whether the FBI should be reformed or not, because they were shocked, I tell you, to learn that the American people want Donald Trump to do exactly what he promised he'd do.
Patel has real reason to believe that Americans would go along with changes that he might potentially make at the FBI. And there's a reason why Donald Trump feels like he can make this change. It's because if you look here, FBI is doing an excellent or good job. Look at this time trend line. You go back to 2014, right? It was 59% of Americans, then 57% in 2019, 50% in 2022. Look at where we are today. My goodness gracious, just 41% of Americans think the FBI is doing an excellent or good job. That is by far the lowest number this century. The bottom line is, during the Trump administration, obviously there were the investigations into Donald Trump. You saw a little bit of drop then, and then post January 6th, look at that drop, 50%, now 41%. My goodness gracious, Kate.
My goodness gracious, indeed, Mr. Enton. So they're really, really surprised to learn that the American people have lost faith in the FBI and, writ large, the Justice Department. It's as if they're not actually watching the news or paying attention to the news. Of course, they're in the news business, so I don't know what they're watching, maybe cartoons or something. Can we look at this graph for a minute? So 2014, 59% of the people in America surveyed had faith in the FBI. This is 2 years into Obama's second term, hadn't started the campaign in 2016 yet. There hadn't been an investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. There hadn't been investigations into Donald Trump's campaign. For the most part, the American people seemed okay with what the FBI was doing. 59% isn't stellar, but it's better than, not. 5 years later, what happened? Well, first of all, remember, Hillary Clinton blames her loss on James Comey. Everybody forgets that. You can't insult the director of the FBI. You can't insult the Justice Department. That's undermining our democracy. It's undermining our institutions. You ask Hillary Clinton today. In fact, Bill Clinton just said it the other day, that the reason Hillary Clinton lost was because of James Comey and his political use of the FBI against her in the email case. Yeah, it's amazing how this works, isn't it? And then also in 2019, we had some notion of what the FBI had done in investigating Donald Trump, but we didn't have all the facts yet. We didn't know about the FISA warrants. We didn't know about the fact that they adopted the Steele dossier, which was paid for opposition research funded by Hillary Clinton and her campaign. We didn't know the tactics that they had used to create this surveillance state around the Trump campaign and the Trump presidency. You fast forward to 2022, it's now dropped down to 50% because we've learned all of the things that the FBI did on James Comey's watch. Now you fast forward 2 years later in 2024. What have we learned in the last 2 years? Well, we've seen the FBI investigate regular American citizens, looked upon them as suspects and potential terrorists because they go to traditional Latin mass, because they pray the rosary outside an abortion mill, or because they go to a school board meeting voicing their disapproval over the COVID policies there. We also learned that the FBI strong-armed Twitter and other social media platforms to censor any information about, somebody voicing their opinion that maybe this COVID virus came from a lab in Wuhan. You've got to be censored. You can't be saying that. And of course, how they ganged up on the New York Post and anybody else who said, geez, this Hunter Biden laptop story seems like it's a real deal. Nope, you're peddling in Russian disinformation. And every time you raise any concerns about the FBI, you become on the enemies list. So why is it surprising? In fact, frankly, I look at this graph and I'm actually concerned that 41% of the American people still think the FBI is doing a good or excellent job. The fact is, we know that there are serious political problems at the FBI and at the Justice Department, and frankly, in every part of the ingrained bureaucracy of Washington, D.C. They think that they're above the law. They think that they need to protect the American people from the president that they just elected. That's how they operate. They think they're actually above the Constitution, while at the same time they claim they're protecting the Constitution. It's insidious and it's dangerous and it's wrong. But again, we have a president who literally ran on this platform and said, elect me and I will clean this mess up. And now he's put people in place to do it. And most specifically, the man he's tapped to be the director of the FBI is the eminently qualified Kash Patel. Kash Patel worked in the Justice Department as a lawyer. He was a hostage negotiator and worked with the FBI for hostage negotiation issues. He also was the top staff member for the House Select Committee on Intelligence. In working with Chairman Devin Nunes at that time, he uncovered the truth about the Russiagate hoax and about what James Comey and the FBI did. He learned the origins of the Steele dossier. He revealed to the American people all of the secrets that they tried to keep quiet about the investigation into Donald Trump and the FISA warrants that were pulled to spy on him and his campaign. He also then worked as the Deputy Director of National Intelligence under Ambassador Rick Grinnell, and he saw the corruption in those intelligence community assets. He also was the Chief of Staff for the Pentagon in his final job for President Donald Trump. He was in the room when Donald Trump pre-authorized the use of the National Guard on January 6th. He saw that Nancy Pelosi and Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., never called the National Guard. And when people blamed Donald Trump for that, Kash Patel stepped forward and said, "What are you talking about? I was there when he pre-authorized it." Sadly, his testimony never made it into the primetime January 6th committee hearings. They know that Kash Patel is eminently qualified based on his resume. They also know that Kash Patel has seen the corruption over the last 10 years. He's literally written a book about it called Government Gangsters. They're terrified that Kash Patel will actually take his knowledge, take his experience, take his skills, and finally clean up the mess. Now, CNN at least had a segment showing, yeah, the American people seem to be on the side of doing this. MSNBC, their head is buried in the sand. On Morning Joe, they brought on David Ignatius, one of the chief peddlers of Russian collusion disinformation during the first Trump presidency. And he sounded the alarm about Kash Patel because MSNBC, they either don't care what the American people think, don't know what the American people think, or they're still arrogant enough to think that they will be able to convince the American people that they're wrong and they should agree with MSNBC. Now, that ship has sailed, certainly, but let's see what Ignatius said about Kash Patel.
Way. He wanted to install a Trump loyalist in a key position at the National Security Agency, one of our most sensitive intelligence collection facilities. He talked with the CIA about reducing the Pentagon's support for CIA operations, whole string of things. He made clear to the people that he was working with at the Pentagon that he was not there to do the normal job of being a chief of staff, but to do the president's bidding. And I think what's of concern when you think about him as FBI director is the FBI director has extraordinary powers to conduct surveillance on American citizens. And those powers to listen into phone calls, to read mail, so to speak, would be directed by somebody who has shown that he has a very political agenda. And as you said, in his book, he had an enemies list.
You know, the lack of self-realization here, as David Ignatius says this, is absolutely dumbfounding to anybody who's paying attention to news and politics and what has happened in this country over the last 10 years. I just need to play this last part again because it is I literally am speechless here as David Ignatius raises the alarm bells over putting somebody like Kash Patel in as director of FBI, considering the power they have to surveil innocent American citizens. Did you catch that?
Director is the FBI director has extraordinary powers to conduct surveillance on American citizens. And those powers to listen into phone calls, to read mail, so to speak, would be directed by somebody who has shown that he has a very political agenda. And as you said, in his book, he had an enemies list.
James Comey was the director of the FBI back in 2016 during the presidential election. His number two man was Andrew McCabe. Andrew McCabe is now a CNN analyst. His wife, by the way, ran as a Democrat in the state legislature in Virginia. Got huge amounts of campaign funds from then Governor Terry McAuliffe, who was an ally of Hillary Clinton, right? He's completely politically connected to the Democrats. Andrew McCabe is. He was the deputy director of the FBI. Peter Strzok was in charge of the counterintelligence division of the FBI. And Lisa Page was a top attorney for Andrew McCabe over at the FBI. Those four names: Comey, number one; McCabe, number two; Peter Strzok, in charge of counterintelligence; Lisa Page, lawyer for Andrew McCabe. Peter Strzok and Lisa Page had a love affair at the FBI, extramarital affair. They were schlepping each other. They traded text messages back and forth with each other about how much they hated Donald Trump. You remember one of the text messages that Peter Strzok sent to his girlfriend, Lisa Page, is, "Don't worry, if Trump wins the election, Andy reminded us of the insurance policy we have." Who's Andy? Andy is Andrew McCabe, the number two. What was the insurance policy? Well, that was the investigation, the Russian collusion investigation that had already been underway, headed up by Peter Strzok at the counterintelligence division of the FBI. All of that was happening under James Comey's watch. Part of the counterintelligence investigation, called Crossfire Hurricane, that investigated Donald Trump, included FISA warrants. FISA, that's a court that allows, for national security purposes, the FBI to conduct surveillance operations on American citizens. The reason that they're allowed to conduct surveillance operations on American citizens is to prevent a terror attack from happening. This was instituted in the Patriot Act back during the Bush years after 9/11. So they used a law that was set up to protect us from radical Islamic terrorists murdering thousands of people in a terror attack or bombing or the 9/11 type attack. They used that, the FISA court, to conduct surveillance on a man named Carter Page, who was an unpaid volunteer in the Trump campaign in 2016. Carter Page is a Naval Academy graduate who has never been arrested, let alone convicted of any kind of crime, local, state, or federal. But they convinced a FISA court that he was a Russian asset, a spy, and he was embedded in the Trump campaign, and he had to be surveilled. And of course, the surveillance that Andrew McCabe authorized through James Comey, the director of the FBI, at the request of Peter Strzok, you know, the same guy who said we have an insurance policy if Trump wins the election. Don't worry, Lisa Page, my lover, we got you covered. That same surveillance warrant that they conducted on Carter Page then allowed them to listen out on phone calls, see text messages, and read emails for anybody who communicated with Carter Page. That included Donald Trump. It included Michael Pence. It included Steve Bannon. It included every aspect of the Trump campaign. They were able to conduct surveillance on all of them. That happened. That's not some fever dream. It's not some fantasy or imaginary horrible hypothetical that you could dream up, like, oh my gosh, it would be terrible if a bad, corrupt political person had power at the FBI. Think about what he could do. No, it happened. Everything that I fact check, everything I just told you. Go ahead. That's history. That happened. Those people were in charge of the FBI. They did abuse those powers. They did it for political purposes. They did it against the guy that half of the country voted for. They did it against the guy who became president, and they maintained that surveillance while he was president. And when the president asked James Comey point blank, his director of the FBI, am I under investigation? James Comey lied to him and said no. And now David Ignatius steps up there on Morning Joe, and all of them with those very serious faces and furrowed brows all say, oh yes, this would be horrible. This would be awful if someone like Kash Patel had that kind of power. We just lived through it. And he's pretending like it never happened. And by the way, this guy's pretending like it because he was part of it. Because every time James Comey or Andy McCabe or any other people that he had sources in the FBI or Justice Department wanted to push some narrative in the media, well, they just leaked it to David Ignatius at the Washington Post, and then he put it out there as if it was reporting, as if it was journalism, when it was all fraudulent. It's outrageous. It's ridiculous. It's enraging. Yet at the same time, I am comforted by their reaction. I am at peace with their reaction. I am actually jubilant that they are this terrified of Kash Patel being the FBI director. And frankly, any Republican senator watching this process unfold before their eyes, if they don't affirm Kash Patel as the director of the FBI, as far as I'm concerned, they're part of the problem. They're trying to protect the status quo because they're part of it. Whew. I didn't plan on going down the entire Russian collusion rabbit hole, but I hope you enjoyed that because it was a great walk down memory lane, wasn't it? Every day of my life for 3 years, that story. Oh. As we've mentioned, one of the best things about this post-pardon world we're living in are people in the media who are having to come to terms with all of the lies that have been said about Joe Biden. But my favorite part, I think, is the lies that they themselves told. For instance, this guy, Chuck Todd, NBC News. Remember him? He used to be the host of Meet the Press. Chuck Todd on Meet the Press spent most of his time telling us that Joe Biden was a great patriotic American, that Joe Biden was pure as the pristine stone, that Joe Biden is a great father and a great president, and he's exactly what this country needs to heal after the tumultuous 4 years of Donald Trump. Well, this guy, Chuck Todd, he's now realized that all of that was complete and total bunk. This pardon has now crystallized for Chuck Todd exactly who Joe Biden is. But even better, he admits here that Chuck Todd himself always knew what a piece of crap Joe Biden is. Take a look.
I followed the Hunter Biden trial very closely. I read every transcript, all the testimony, because that's what all that was made public. And there is, you want to get angry, just as somebody in just all these mixed emotions. You read the Hallie Biden transcript, and that's Bo's widow.
Yes.
And essentially he turned her into a crack addict. And this was all happening in 2017, 2018. And Joe Biden were so concerned about their family that they decided to run for president.
Yep.
So when you talk about the word selfish, it's almost like the word doesn't, their decision to run for president put the entire Democratic Party and the United States of America in the position that it's in now.
Yeah, that's Chris Saliza's podcast, by the way. He's the guy with the very blue horn-rimmed glasses there. Yeah, this guy. He calls himself a DC journalist as well. He was interviewing Chuck Todd, and I loved him. He was like, yes, that's right. That's right. They're selfish. They're creeps. They're liars. They're horrible presidents. They've ruined the. So at the very end there, when Chuck Todd says, their selfish decision to run for president is what's put the Democratic Party in the position it's in right now. That's the real crux of it. Okay. Now put a pin on that. I want to get back to it. But I love that he's walking down this path. I paid attention in the Hunter Biden trial, and I learned that he put his brother's widow and made her addicted to crack. And he ruined her life. And this was all happening right when Joe Biden decided to run for president. How selfish, how narcissistic, what terrible parents. They really cared about their son. They would have set aside their political ambitions. They would have taken care of him. Hunter Biden's a terrible person. Joe Biden's a terrible person. Jill Biden's a terrible person. Where the hell have you people been? First of all, we knew Joe Biden was a terrible person when he deliberately ruined Robert Bork's lies. Excuse me. God. Robert Bork's life. We knew Joe Biden was a terrible person when he deliberately ruined Robert Bork's life back in the late 80s with a mountain of lies that were concocted about him. Robert Bork was one of the most brilliant legal minds, and he should have been on the Supreme Court. Ronald Reagan nominated him, but it was Joe Biden who ran that judiciary hearing, that confirmation hearing, that based on a mountain of lies, they ruined Robert Bork's reputation, or at least they tried to. He was still an elder statesman in this town up until his death. Joe Biden also lied his way through the 1988 presidential campaign by actually stealing speeches from other people until it was found out, and his entire presidential campaign came crashing down. We knew he was a terrible person then, too. But if that wasn't enough, in 1991, Joe Biden tried to ruin Clarence Thomas's life on a mountain of lies. He tried to do the same thing all over again that he had done for Robert Bork. Clarence Thomas, a great man, a wonderful human being, but Joe Biden saw a political opportunity, so he tried to ruin his life too. Then he weaseled his way onto the ticket with Barack Obama. And then once he was vice president, when he ran for re-election, he tried to ruin Mitt Romney by calling Mitt Romney a racist, by claiming that Paul Ryan was going to make grandmothers starve to death. Remember the ad throwing grandma off a cliff? That's all Joe Biden's Democrat Party that concocted all of those lies. He's a horrible person. He's not. Listen, anybody who works as a senator for 50 years in Washington, D.C. is a horrible person. The fact that this is your life, that you can't actually move on from Washington and get some other job, something wrong with you. You're broken as a human being. But when his son Beau died while he was vice president, and then suddenly the tabloids all started talking about his other son Hunter in an affair with his mourning widowed sister-in-law, everybody said, ew, this is creepy. What the hell is going on here? Everyone in Washington knew about his son's drug problem. Joe Biden enabled that drug problem by getting Hunter a job in the Navy Reserves. He lasted 1 month, and the Navy kicked him out for abusing their drug policies. But he continued to protect him through all of that. But think about that for a second. You know your son is a loser. You know your son has a drug problem. So what do? You stick him in the military? What a low opinion you've got of our military. And the Navy was like, I don't care what your last name is. We're not having you. And yet you still protect him. You still allow and enable and empower this. Why? Because he was the bag man for the Biden crime syndicate. We all knew all of this, Chuck Todd. Where the hell have you been? Chuck Todd is a very well-paid man whose job it is to report on and comment on American politics from Washington, D.C. And he's acting like all of this is brand new information. But what's the main thesis? What's Joe Biden's real sin? What's really got Chuck Todd so angry that now he's reached the point where he's willing to speak out? Where was this Chuck Todd when he was hosting Meet the Press for the last 6, 7, 8 years? All through the Trump presidency, all through the last part of the Obama presidency, all through the first part of the Biden presidency. Where was Chuck Todd and this realization that Joe Biden is a piece of scum? Nowhere to be seen. What is the one sin that Joe Biden has committed now that finally brings Chuck Todd out and say, all right, I can't hold it in any longer. I got to tell you how awful Joe Biden is. What was that crime? What was that sin?
So when you talk about the word selfish, it's almost like the word doesn't, their decision to run for president put the entire Democratic Party and the United States of America in the position that it's in now.
Notice the order of priorities there. His selfish decision to run for president put the Democratic Party and the United States of America, put our party and, oh, by the way, our country in the position it's in now. But by the way, just so you know, when he says that selfish decision put the United States in the position it's in right now, the position he's talking about is having to deal with 4 years of Donald Trump, because he thinks that's just worse than death. You're right. We're worse than a war, worse than, Armageddon. The fact of the matter is Joe Biden put our country through hell by lying his way all through the Senate, all through the vice presidency, and all through the presidency. He demonizes his political opponents. He's a horrible father. He's a terrible human being. And Chuck Todd has finally realized it and finally is ready to speak out again. Why? Because he hurt the Democrats. See, Biden was fine. All those sins were there. All those lies were there. All those crimes were there. All the narcissism and the selfishness, it was all there. But as long as he was able to use his political power to hurt Trump, hurt Republicans, and keep Democrats in power, then Joe Biden was just fine. But now that all of those flaws hurt the party, he has no more use for him. Now, finally, Chuck Todd can tell the truth about what he really thinks about Joe Biden, because he can't use Joe Biden anymore to hurt us and keep Democrats in power. That's the real problem. And that's why Chuck Todd's just the beginning. Just wait. Between now and Inauguration Day, just you wait to see how many people are done with Joe Biden. They are so done. Listen, welcome to the parties, pal. We appreciate it. Great to have you. But just so you know, we've been ahead of the curve on this one. We've always known Joe Biden's a piece of crap. Well, if you're not tired of winning, I've got one more notion here that might just put you over the top. It's the cherry on top of the banana split that is the Trump victory from last month. Are you ready for this? Guess who's ready to call it quits because Donald Trump won the election? None other than Bill Maher. Take a look here as he interviews this this cadaver that they just propped up and just worked as a puppet. That's weird. Why would you have an Oh, I'm sorry, what? Oh, that's Jane Fonda. Sorry about that. Okay, let's watch.
I mean, I may quit because I don't want to do another. I did Trump. I did all the Trump stuff before anybody. I called him a con man before anybody. He's a mafia boss. I was the one who said he wasn't going to concede the election. I've done it. I've seen this.
Well, then how come he's so hostile to Jimmy Kimmel and not to you?
He's very hostile to me. He tweets about me every week.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Every week he accidentally watches my show and then low ratings loser.
Oh, well, yeah.
But I mean, I'm bored with it. I mean,
so find a new thing to do and not do Trump. Do something else.
The show is the politics.
I know,
There's no other thing and he's going to dominate the news like he always does.
I don't know why, but this is so enjoyable to watch. Everything about this was hilarious. First of all, they're both stoned, right? Or drunk or something. They're both slurring their speech. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Bill Maher. He likes to partake in the devil weed now and again. I guess Jane still does too. Good Lord, Jane Fonda. But did you catch the not so subtle sort of insult to Bill Maher there? It's great. It's so great. He's like lamenting that it's like, oh, I've already done this and it's just tiresome and I'm bored with it and it's terrible and I go after Trump all the time and I don't know if I can do 4 years of it. And what does Jane Fonda say?
Well, then how come he's so hostile to Jimmy Kimmel and not to you?
If you spend so much time going after Donald Trump, how come he never mentions you? He's only going after Kimmel. I guess Kimmel's better. I guess Kimmel's more effective. I guess he doesn't give a crap about you. I guess whatever you say, he's not paying attention. That's actually like so really low level sort of shade Jane Fonda's throwing there. Unintentional. I don't think she knows what she's saying, but it's beautiful. And then my favorite part is Bill Maher says, hey, he comes after me.
He's very hostile to me. He tweets about me every week.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Every week he accidentally watches my show and then low ratings loser.
Oh,
by the way, if you want to project to Donald Trump that you don't care that he doesn't like your show, you might not want to act like you care so much about it and quote verbatim exactly what he says about your show. I mean, honestly, I read the comments in our chat all the time. I do like it, and I love all the nice things you say. Sometimes we get people who say mean things to me because they don't like me or they don't like my opinion or whatever. I get it. That's fine. Honestly, I don't commit them to memory. If somebody asked me in this setting, how come you don't get any negative comments? I said, I do get negative comments. I got this one and I got that one. And right? I mean, that's pathetic and it's sad, but these are people in show business. So that's sort of who they are. So now Bill Maher is like, oh, I've already done this. In fact, I led the way. I was the one who said this. I was the first one to say that. And Jane Fonda's like, well, maybe you should just change the subject. And Bill Maher is like, there is no other subject. It's the only thing I can talk about. It's amazing to me. Those of us who are in this business of talking about politics and news and the media and media criticism and stuff, I promise you there's a lot going on out there. I mean, yes, right now we're in the post-election haze and all that jazz, but this is a man who couldn't bring himself to crack jokes about Joe Biden for the last 4 years, really. I mean, he had a few out there. Once in a while, he would have to keep it real, but mostly he talks about issues. As you'll see, here. But just think about that for a minute. You're in the business of political news commentary and making fun of people, and you couldn't bring yourself to find anything funny about Joe Biden for the last 4 years. You suck, right? But he does talk about issues, and that brings us to this moment where he has an exchange with Jane Fonda that is amazing to watch. Watch Jane Fonda here sort of left without a line as Bill Maher recognizes the fact that the far left in this country has gone way too far. I'm only going to interrupt this once to point out something, and then I'll let it play. Let's watch it together.
They just think the far left has gone so nutty on so many issues.
That's what they're being told.
That's what they...
By people like you.
Because it's true. You think the far left does nothing crazy?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Oh, well then...
But I don't know. Who is the far left? What do you mean when you say far left?
I mean...
Okay, so that's where I wanted to jump in here, and then I'll let him finish because he actually does a pretty good job here, and Jane is like completely clueless. But I get that's I think my favorite thing that liberals do, or that Jane Fonda accidentally admitted right there with that question. What is the far? I hear far left. I don't even know what that means. Well, of course you don't, because you are the far left. That's like, is there such a thing? These are, by the way, sometimes people like Jane Fonda don't even consider themselves left. They'll just say, no, I'm normal, I'm moderate, but really. So they're constantly saying extreme right wing. You never hear extreme left wing. And Jane Fonda never hears far left or extreme left ever in any of the conversations she has about politics. Bill Maher is probably the first one to actually use that term, far left. And Jane Fonda's like, what does that even mean? Who's far left? How can you be too far to the left, right? Is basically what she's saying here. So now listen to the examples that Bill Maher gives her. And this is fantastic. I won't break it now.
I could give you a million examples.
Yeah, well, give me one.
Okay, the NAACP.
You think the NAACP is far
Could I
left?
finish my sentence?
Yes.
You asked me for an example.
Yeah.
The NAACP last year issued a travel advisory. That's like the State Department does to go to, I'm sure when you went to Vietnam, they were advising you not to. There's a war on.
I didn't talk to them. I don't have no.
I know, but a travel advisory.
Yeah.
Today we have them for very dangerous countries.
Yeah.
Don't go to North Korea. Don't go to Iran.
Yeah.
You know where they issued a travel advisory for Black people not to go?
Yeah.
Florida. Every day there's stories like that just makes people roll their eyes and go, are you people nuts? Even if they don't matter that much, I don't think one person listened to this and thought, I can't go to Florida. But they just suggest something to the average person, which I completely understand, which is, wow, do you people ever find anything that's ridiculous? Do you really think men can get pregnant? That kind of stuff. And I understand that a trans woman can get pregnant. That's different than a man getting pregnant. And the way they sort of insist on blurring that line is if that's some sort of reasonable social cause, as opposed to just being for having full rights, respect, and protection for trans people. We get that.
So I've never heard about men getting pregnant. I've never heard about this argument. It must be some part of what you call the far left that is so minuscule that I, who am...
No, Jane,
what?
It's not minuscule. And I'm sorry, you can't throw this back on us. I assume it's because you are locked into media that just never wants anyone in their audience to know anything sketchy about the blue team.
Well,
and that's
I mean, I don't know. I read 2 papers and maybe I don't. I should watch Fox News.
No,
I guess.
I don't watch. That's too far. But you don't have to. I'm not going to torture myself.
Oh, they just Jane Fonda. Not sure where all this transgender stuff is coming from. By the way, I love the first example that the NAACP put out a travel warning against Black people going to Florida, and Jane Fonda's reaction was, right. And so, what's the weird thing? What's the thing that's extreme? But Jane Fonda doesn't have any notion or inkling that it's being pushed on people right now that men can become pregnant because of transgender ideology. And I wish, again, I get frustrated when Bill Maher, who is a frankly mean-spirited lefty who is obnoxious and rude and disgusting to people who disagree with him, but he does, at least he's an honest, rude, obnoxious, disgusting lefty. He's honest, at least, for the most part. And he does point out extremism on his side of the equation. But see, if I were in that position, I would say, oh, yeah, Jane, that's the thing. And you're saying you're not aware of it and you may think it's extreme. But let me just add one more element to this. And maybe you need to reconcile this with your own politics. Not only is that a thing, not only is this transgender ideology a thing, and they're pushing the idea, the lie, that men can become pregnant, but they're pushing it on children in elementary schools officially through the curriculum of our public schools. And if you say that that's not appropriate for our children in our public schools, you're called a bigot. And they say that you're perpetuating a hate crime by saying that only you as a parent should have those conversations. In fact, here in California, they're threatening to take children away from parents who want to reserve conversations about sexual content and gender ideology and keep the public schools out of the equation. If a teacher thinks that you're not open to your child's gender transition, they can trigger Child Protective Services to remove the child from a parent's home, Jane. It's not just some people writing a column at The Atlantic or saying something on Fox News, Jane. This is now in the curriculum of public schools, and parents aren't allowed to have a say. And Jane will just say, oh, well, you're watching too much Fox News. And if being informed about the reality of the extremes in this country means that you watch too much Fox News, then I guess you should take the W. But let's face it, it's not from watching too much Fox News. It's from watching too much Town Hall. Am I right? In fact, if you like what we do here at Town Hall, can you please visit our websites? A lot of people know about this show on YouTube or Rumble or on social media. But you're surprised to learn that we're actually a whole family of websites with some superstar, stellar contributors. Go to townhall.com, hotair.com, pjmedia.com, redstate.com, or twitchy.com and bearingarms.com. That's our family of websites, all part of the Town Hall Media family. And we have a VIP program where right now we've got an incredible, well, let's call it a after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday sale going on. You use my name, Larry, and you get 50% off a VIP membership. Go to the websites right now. Take a look. When you get a VIP membership, you get content that is reserved just for VIP members. You also get an ad-free experience on those sites. You'll see all of our shows there as well. And you also help support what we do at Town Hall. You help support this program. You also help support all of our writers, all of our columnists, all of our investigative journalists who are working tirelessly to bring you the truth at the Town Hall Media family. So please become a member if you can, and subscribe to our channel wherever you're watching us right now. In fact, if you're a regular viewer on, say, YouTube or Facebook, why don't you go cross over and become a subscriber on those other platforms as well? You can subscribe on Rumble and on YouTube and on Facebook, or you can find me on X at Larry O'Connor and follow me so you can catch the show there. That way, when we go live, no matter where you are, you'll be able to see us on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and X. All right. Thank you very much for all that. Thanks for the support. Kevin, do we have any more super chats that came in there since our first break? We do. Kathy Amonti, $1.99. Thank you for that super chat, Kathy. I love the Trump impersonator. He's my fave. Yeah, he's fantastic, isn't he? Absolutely fantastic Trump impersonator. Doesn't look much like Trump, but he sounds exactly like him. Miata Mama. Oh, you drive a Miata. I love Miatas. Those are cool. Red one, I'm guessing. Convertible? Sure. $5. Thank you, Miata Mama. It was a lie because Biden trusted the judicial system, but now it's a politically corrupted judicial system. But it's his judicial system. Thank you. We can't trust this corrupt judicial system. They're coming after me politically. Wait a minute. They work for you, pal. Amazing. Thank you, Miata Mama. Angela, thank you so much. Well, for $10, thank you so much. Bozo Biden gives $1 billion to Africa while Americans freeze and starve in North Carolina and other devastation. Veterans sleep on the streets while illegals occupy 5 hotels. 48 days till MAGA and Maher, January 20th, freedom. Not just freedom, but I think in the context of that super chat comment, Angela, it means we're going to put America first. America first policies. and it can't come soon enough. God bless you, Angela. Thank you so much. That's so nice. Buzzy181, $3 super sticker. Consider it stuck, Buzzy. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thank you all for watching today. We'll be back tomorrow. In the meantime, my name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.